So today I have Roberta Watts with me. Roberta is a resistance training specialist for a company called Integra. She's actually a lot more than that as well now. She's the studio manager and team manager in Integra as well, based in London. But it is a form of personal training, but a much deeper level of personal training, as she will explain, involving a deep knowledge of anatomy and the resistance of muscles and how anatomy works and contributes towards your performance in the gym. Prior to doing this role, Roberta did a lot of other roles, including sales, where she worked in car companies, in retail, and this really helped her develop her relationship management skills, which stood her in very good stead in the personal training world as well. So welcome, Roberta. Lovely to have you here today. You work for Integra as a resistance training specialist,
Yes.
which is a specialist personal trainer. Can you define what that stands for?
Yes, so we deal with training people via resistance training, so looking at weightlifting and various ways to apply load to the body, but specialist in looking at somebody's unique anatomy and structure before loading them.
So it's another level really to personal training, isn't it?
Yes, it's definitely a much deeper analysis of what you're about to do before you do it, and who, in terms of the individual, you're about to apply weights and resistance to.
Excellent. So let's start by finding out, your journey from when you were at school until now. You've had a very interesting journey, actually. So try to give us that in a potted history.
Potted history, okay. Baby time was, I went to school in Devon. That's the little boot part of the country near Cornwall.
Yeah.
I was there for, I moved about from London to Devon, and then I was in Devon up until the age of 22. When I went to school in Devon, I was heavily into performing arts.
Yeah.
So I loved performing arts. I was performing all the time. Every concert I could get myself to at school, I was performing.
You're a beautiful singer.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And that's what I thought I was pursuing my career to do.
So you're at school in Devon. What were you like as a child?
Hyperactive.
Okay.
I was always known as the bright and bubbly one, didn't stop talking, sang whenever I could.
Were you academic or social? How would you describe yourself?
I love learning. I was
Yeah.
hungry to learn any and every topic, but
Yeah.
I didn't turn out very academic because of getting a bit ill during my teens.
And you moved around quite a bit as well, didn't you?
Moved around a lot from school to school. I was bullied quite a bit at school
Right,
for being
okay.
overweight.
Right, okay, which is interesting, bearing in mind how fit you are now, isn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah. Do you think that the bullying had anything to do with you eventually ending up in the personal training world?
Yeah, absolutely. Being young, being really overweight. I didn't really play out much when I was little, so it was pretty much just school, singing, and home. And being overweight, being badly treated at school. There were several times when I tried to lose weight, even from the ages of 8 to 16, before I really got serious in training.
So you were at school, you were quite a dreamer, as you said yourself, excitable, bubbly, in touch with your emotions, you love learning.
Yeah.
And you were really set for a career in performing arts.
Yes.
You actually mentioned that you even won a scholarship to go across to LA, didn't you?
I
Doing
did,
singing,
yeah.
dancing.
2 weeks over in LA in an academy called Idlewild in the Mountains.
Right, lovely.
It was an amazing experience.
So you were set to then go on to study performing arts.
Yes.
But then you experienced a tragedy in your family, didn't you?
I did, yes. My brother died when I was 19, and I continued to go to college because I was enrolled straight afterwards to performing arts in Devon. But I dropped out within maybe 4 to 6 months because the grief was just too much to stay.
Yeah. But out of that came a love of training, because you turned to training to sort of try and cope with your grief.
Absolutely, yeah. Training was my only place and only support really that I could go to, because it was consistent. It was there for you. When you went to the gym and you showed up, there was nothing else to get in the way. So it was a mental place where you could go and do something that was challenging but safe.
We'll talk more about that. Whilst you were doing that, though, you did a variety of jobs, didn't you?
Oh, loads of jobs. So because I didn't really know what I wanted to do, I just got my head down and wanted to go and figure out what there was out there. So I went from cleaning to bar jobs to working in nightclubs, and I even sold steel at one point.
Okay. And then you moved into retail.
I moved into retail. I found a amazing job as a sales executive working for Jaguar and Aston Martin.
Wow. Okay, that must have been quite something.
It was definitely an eye-opener, nothing like I'd ever done before.
Yeah.
The most fun and most challenging was to deal with people.
Yeah.
It's something that I love to do, but I had to deal with it in a very specific way in order to create a sale, so it was a great learning experience.
And did you get to drive the cars and everything as well?
Absolutely, yeah, totally got to drive the cars.
And learned all about the brand and everything
All about
like
the brand, the technology, how they worked. I fell in love with Jaguar in particular, even though I did work for part Aston Martin too, but Jaguar's brand in itself, I fell in love with the history and then the actual technology of how the car is built and how it's presented for a sale as well.
That's really interesting to me, because knowing what I know now about your current role and where you are studying the detail of anatomy and how things work and how things get put together, and actually you love that about that particular car brand, didn't you? About Aston Martins and Jags and the technology behind it.
The technology behind it, how they put it all together, you know, the innovation, the creativity in it was just amazing. But the thing is that I loved about it is it had to be excellent.
Yes.
It had to be, you had to know what you were doing in both my ability to relay all the detail to a client to show them why our brand was better than somebody else's, but in how to perform and show the car how it really worked.
So you moved to London.
I moved to London.
Yeah, and then tell me a bit more about that.
When I moved to London, I didn't have a job at the time.
Yeah.
I was living with my mum, and I knew that I needed to do something, and I went back to the gym. So the gym was my first steer back to finding another job in between the move. And what I did was I went every day, but I started to do little things that were achievable and manageable. Yeah. And then I built it up from there.
And you got another job in sales, in car sales again, didn't you, as well?
I did,
yeah,
working for Audi this time.
Okay, so did you feel at that time that could have been your niche, the sales side, or
not? There was something missing.
You're right, okay.
I absolutely love selling cars. I love the cars themselves. I love learning about them. But there was something about the actual companies that I was working for that they just didn't want to teach me more. Yeah. They didn't want to help take me to the next level. And I was so hungry that if I learn anything and do it well, I'll do it good. Yeah, yeah. But I really need to be shown. And it wasn't for the want of not trying, but it was the lack of direction. And so if I'm met with too many barriers, I need to find something that's really going to work for me. Yeah, and you've got this hunger for learning, and Absolutely. So you want to, and this hunger for progression, by the sounds of it. Yeah. So getting back to the training, obviously that's what you were sort of, you having that need fulfilled. Yeah, living and breathing progression. Yeah. So you were just going through, you know, the weights are an amazing challenge. You get to go in there, you know, week on week, and depending on mood, depending on days, you don't always want to push to the ends of the earth, but when you do and you go for it, you get to see how strong you really are. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you said something earlier about it being an analogy for life. Absolutely, you know, getting yourself under a bar. It sounds really cliche, but knowing that there's a weight on your back and you've got to do something about it, it is everyday life. You know, when those big challenges wash you over, you've got no other choice other than to stand up. Really. Yeah. Quite interesting you say that as a woman. I mean, yes. I'm quite new to the training world. I've been training for just over a year. Never thought I would see myself doing heavy weightlifting. No. And so I can completely understand what you say now. But just for those who are listening who find that concept alien, what would you say about women weightlifting? And women and weightlifting, I think, is exceptionally powerful. I think one of the best parts of my job is being able to have a woman as a client. I've got men too, but there is something a little bit extra special because there's like an underlying potential that we didn't really know was there, and there's something about embracing your physical strength that just reinforces how mentally strong we are. You've had an incredible result in a year. You've worked really hard for it, and it just goes to show that, you know, if we focus on ourselves and we put our time in, that we will get the best out of it. And before we go into any job, we need to make sure that we're looking after ourselves first. Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, it is a fantastic analogy for life. You know, the same thing applies, doesn't it, in your job and in your career? Yeah. Little tiny steps of progress all the time, sometimes setbacks, and then moving forward again. Yes. So you were finding this, you know, very sort of fulfilling and stimulating, and then decided that maybe this was actually a career that you'd like to go in. So tell us a little bit more how you sort of came to that realisation. Well, I realised what personal training was doing for me. So I was actually a client. I was a client with somebody who pushed me really hard, and they really helped me overcome those days when I didn't want to lift a weight, I didn't want to work hard. And there was something about it that just made me think, there's so many other people out there that are experiencing struggles and loss, and they're getting lost in doing everything other than something for themselves. And because I was living it and feeling that progression daily, I wanted to be able to offer that to somebody else.
Okay, so how did you sort of go about that? What were the next steps?
Next steps for me was I was training with a personal trainer, and his girlfriend at the time, she told me about this guy to download some podcasts off that he gave really good information, told you more about your own body, but then how to get into the industry yourself. I went to the Body Power Expo.
What is that, the Body Power Expo?
So it's like a fitness experience. Oh, my hand.
That's all right.
So it's a fitness experience for people who love the gym, really. And then a lot of educators in the industry show up, and there's brands for products that are all gym products. People just go and have a big nosy. Loads of people diet down for it. And they just go there to show off their work, in effect. Your body is your work when you put a lot of effort into it.
Yeah, absolutely. So you went there, and then what happened?
On the drive back, because it was 3 hours, I listened to some podcasts in the car. And I heard a guy talking called Phil Lerney, and the information that he was giving me at the time was just a massive eye-opener. And it felt like the thing that I'd been looking for, someone willing to give me information where I can use it, and then I'll drive it forward. So I'm a firm believer, if you want to get something done, you need to find the people who have done it that are brilliant at it, and then go and learn from them. So I sent a message to him on Facebook. He agreed to give me a one-off session, and then I just about convinced my mum to let me train with him. And he said that he would take me on 2 to 3 times a week, and I began training with him.
And then after that, you decided to move into sort of the qualification stage, didn't you?
Absolutely, yeah. So I knew that working at Aldi wasn't going to serve me any longer. So I found the 3-week personal training course that I did, which was 1-to-1 near Tottenham Court Road, and I achieved that whilst I was training with Phil.
Just as an aside here, I mean, that you did that across 3 weeks, but what you were saying to me earlier was that one of the issues with the personal training industry is that you can actually achieve this qualification online, even not face-to-face, over a weekend.
Not face-to-face.
And that does cause issues within the industry, doesn't it?
It massively lowers the standards of the industry. People don't know what they're working with. It's like working for Formula One and having absolutely no idea how to put the tyres on a car is exceptionally dangerous, and it gives people a really bad experience.
So when we come on to the advice, you can tell us more about sort of the good courses and maybe the not so good ones. But you did one of these good ones. You did this qualification. You then moved to the next level of study, didn't you?
Yes. So I found some people, I found some mentors. Phil was one of them. He gave me some education to study. And then I met my osteo and now good friend, Elaine Tilley, who taught me anatomy. And then she introduced me to a course that is called the Resistance Training Specialist Programme. And at the time, she told me it would be heavy in terms of knowledge and anatomy. I was rather nervous, but she said to support me on the course, and so I went along. Yeah.
So this course then was delivered by the company that you now work for?
Yeah, it was delivered by Michael Golden for Integra.
Yes.
It's the Resistance Training Specialist Programme. So it started with separating the body into different parts. The first weekend was called Spine and Trunk, and it was unlike any other course I'd ever seen before.
Explain a bit more for us, why it's different to normal personal training.
It's different because of the level of specificity. So you've got to know exactly where things are in order to know what you're trying to affect. And because everybody's anatomy is so different, sometimes you can be, you'd be shooting in the dark. You could be trying to put someone on a chest press to develop their chest on a bench press, but actually what they really need is a chest cable fly because of the way that their muscles are actually set up on their body.
So it's a very safe and effective way of personal training.
Absolutely.
And enables you to sort of build up probably quicker because all of your muscles are becoming engaged.
Yeah.
You're not relying on just the few that are working.
Absolutely.
So having learned all this, and it does sound absolutely fascinating, how did you then develop your career at Integra?
So I took the courses, which was split over 3 weekends over 3 months, and I started talking to my now very close friend Michael, who became my mentor, and I was just so hungry to learn, so I wanted him to point me in the right direction. I worked for a different fitness company in Berkeley Square before that, and it wasn't fulfilling me because there wasn't enough education in it. I still didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
And Michael was putting me on the right path, he was giving me things to study, giving me things to learn. And whilst I was there, at the time, I thought working for Integra was out of reach because there was so much involved. But due to perseverance and just thinking, well, what's it really going to take for me to get a job there? I asked Michael, and he subsequently gave me a role later on.
Yeah. And it just shows that when you've got that hunger to learn and that willingness to learn, and also not being afraid to ask for what you want.
Absolutely.
You end up sort of achieving it as something that maybe you didn't think you would when you were in awe of that person when you were listening to them on the podcast all that time previously.
Absolutely. I thought they were all out of my reach
Yeah.
at the time, but I wanted to learn from them. And then you realise that people really appreciate your hunger to learn.
Yeah.
Before so I took the course with Integra for RTS, and then I became a client of Michael's.
Yeah.
And from that, it was just like, actually, this process, the way that it works, this is exactly the kind of exceptional service that I want to give somebody. How do I do it?
Right. Now, that was over 2 years ago.
Yep.
And now you are, obviously in a very important role in that business. So tell us what you're responsible for there now.
So now I'm the studio manager at Integra.
Yeah.
I manage the team,
Yeah.
day-to-day activities, and I've got my lovely clients that I work with as well,
Yeah.
day in, day out.
So give us an example of a sort of typical day for you now then.
So I get up at 5 a.m. every day.
Every day?
Every day.
Do you struggle with that?
No, not really, because I get up, I cook my eggs in the morning.
So you're very healthy with your food?
I'm very regular with my food, and
Yeah.
I'm very healthy with my food because my mood gets affected if I don't eat well.
Yes, and I think that is, a lot of people are not aware of that. They don't realise that if they don't have the proper nutrition,
Absolutely.
that they're not going to be firing on all cylinders,
And
either
it's actually
physically
not
or
that big of a deal.
mentally. Yeah.
You don't need to put too much effort in,
Yeah.
so long as you just get things in a slight routine.
Absolutely.
It's
yeah.
just good nutritious food regularly.
So you get up at 5, and then what happens?
Then I go in to train. I'm into work by 5:30. I train, finish at 6:30, and then I get ready for my 7 a.m. clients
So you train every day,
every day.
and do you have any rest days?
On weekends.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sunday to Monday.
Excellent. Okay. And do you have fitness goals that you're working on?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Strength is a big one for me.
Brilliant.
I cycle up and down with fat loss.
Yeah.
But definitely muscle building and strength is a big one for me.
Wow. Okay. So once you've done your training in your own sort of personal routine, then tell us a bit about the client work that you do.
So now I work with clients hour to hour, back to back, from 7 a.m. until 11. Then between 11 and 1 or 11 and 2, I'll do my admin work, or I'll do lots of study, which I've got running projects of study that I'll be on at any one time.
And then more clients in the afternoon?
More clients in the afternoon, and then I'll have a team meeting, have a coffee with my boss and my colleagues.
Yeah.
We'll all catch up with our day, and then get on with the next one.
And with your clients, are they all sort of what sorts of different clients are they? Tell us about those.
Well, where we are, we get a lot of creative people.
Yeah.
We get a lot of editors, producers, things like that. People, but they're all leaders. Everyone that we get, including yourself, they're all leaders in their profession. People that want to better themselves.
Yeah.
People that are looking for something different.
Yes.
I find, because we've had clients that, Michael's had clients for 16 years, and I've had clients for 2.5 years, and that's not on and off, that's week in, week out. So these are people that are after longevity and sustainable results.
Yes, yeah. And they like this holistic approach.
Yeah, they like the holistic approach. They like the fact that we incorporate their lifestyles, because you are leaders and there's lots of different things that come into that, from travel to going out for dinners and lots of lunches. They need, really clever strategies that are going to help them maintain their goals, but also not limit their abilities.
Yeah. So tell us some of the lovely things about the job that you really enjoy most.
The things that I love the most are my clients.
Yeah.
They are incredible, every single one of them. There isn't one client that I've got that doesn't inspire me daily. Just from their attitude, for the things that they experience, and then the way that they come in with focus. It's an amazing journey to be a part of with each of them. I've got an incredible company that I work for that support and encourage the amount of learning that I'm hungry for. Plus, they like to add in some challenges themselves.
Yeah.
And my team.
Yeah.
I'm in a team of like-minded people that are constantly trying to grow, constantly trying to think, was that the best session for that client, or could I get something more out of it? And then they'll try and apply it for the next time.
Yeah. Like with any job, there are going to be challenges as well.
Sure.
So tell us about some of the challenges.
So some of the challenges that we experience as a company right now is recruitment, trying to find people that really want to work hard and that know the level of effort that they've got to put in order to become good at their job.
So turning that on its head to anyone listening who wants to do this job, you struggle with recruitment and getting good people. We'll come on to that in a minute. But there's lots of potential to build careers in this industry, isn't there?
A huge potential to build careers in this industry. If you're driven and you have got an initiative and you want to look around, you want to connect with people that are reputable out there and find information from them, the door is really wide open.
Because you struggle with recruiting good people.
We do struggle with recruiting for people. There's not as many people in this industry with such drive to constantly do better and be better.
And push themselves as well as their clients.
Push themselves as well as themselves.
So that's one of your challenges. Any others?
One of the other challenges that I have is knowing how to manage myself. So it's making sure that whilst I'm doing my best for everybody else, that I'm also doing best for myself first.
Yeah.
I've definitely found the ups and downs of, booking lots of clients in and not taking care of yourself. And it becomes so difficult to then focus in a session and think and be prepared for that session and for that client's journey if you're not taking care of yourself on your own journey.
Where could this lead to if someone's looking at this as a career and thinking, wow, it sounds excellent, and you yourself are very young, so you've got a lot of future ahead of you. But so generally speaking, someone listening and thinking, it sounds great, I'd like to do that maybe for a few years, but where do people go after personal training?
Well, I think there's lots of ways that you could design it for yourself. So you've got being a personal trainer and working your way through levels of personal training. So in terms of my company, we've got different levels of education and experience and results. Then you've got the opportunities of looking around and sort of saying, do I want to build my company? Do I want to work to invest in it to make it greater than it currently is? Do I want to add value, or do I feel like I should go and open something of my own?
Yes.
Do I feel like there's an opportunity there? And you can definitely do that. There's ways that you could join partnerships with other people. You could come away from one-to-one altogether. You could go into management. You could set up something online. You could write videos, podcasts. You could do webinars. You could do online training with clients if you wanted to.
Yes.
So long as you've got that understanding, because you've got an understanding of two things. You've got an understanding of fitness and how to get someone to their goal, but you've got an understanding of business because you will have learned. You would have needed to.
Absolutely. And also, if you're particularly interested in the anatomy side, could you go down that route and start to move more into anatomy and almost from a medical perspective?
Absolutely, yeah. You could totally take what you've learned from personal training. You could go into physiotherapy. You could go into anything to do with... you could really go out there if you knew what you wanted to know about anatomy, because the body is never ending in terms of learning.
Absolutely.
So when you find something that you're really curious about, you can just grab it, run with it, and find another industry that it's going to work for you.
Yeah, excellent. So people that are interested, and I'm sure there are many, what would you suggest? How do they sort of get on the ladder? How should they go about it?
Well, I think going about it in a sensible way is probably, I used to be a heads first, close your eyes, but actually looking back on it, I think it's much better to have a job that you've got that currently earns well. Because to do the personal training course, it doesn't take that long, but you need that consistency of a financial income before you delve into this.
Yes.
Because in the initial part, it's not very lucrative.
Right.
The hours are sporadic in terms of that you've got to work. One day you'll have a client at 6:30 and then you'll have a 3 in the afternoon, and you've got to wait from 6 a.m, 7 a.m. until 3 in the afternoon. So it's about having enough of what you need to be able to start off in this industry.
So they have this other job. They're interested in being a personal trainer.
Yes.
What would be the next step for them then?
So they need to get a certification. Everybody needs to get a level 3 personal training qualification, and you can do that either. You can actually do it online on a weekend course if you wanted to. I think on an online one ranges for about £700.
Right.
If you wanted to do the face-to-face one that I did, I think it's in surplus of £2,000, and you can pay monthly for that. So if you did have a running job, it would be smart to pay one whilst doing the other.
And do you think that you would be better qualified doing it that way?
I do, because you get to learn two things at any one time.
Yeah.
Learning is you don't do something once and retain all the information. So having something that's broken down over time is a greater way to retain the information. And also in between that learning period and not being immersed in face-to-face, I've got to figure this out right now, will enable you to think through it a little bit more carefully and probably be much better equipped when you go into it.
Yeah, processing the information, etc. And So you said that this can be done online, but also there are organisations that you can find that will deliver this course.
Yeah, if you put it into Google, how to become personal trainer, level 3 certification. I think mine was done by Premier Global in Tottenham Court Road. And so there's physical bodies that you can go to and get this qualification from.
So once they've achieved that course, I know they have to buy a small amount of insurance.
Yep, so they have to get personal liability insurance.
And then what would you suggest?
Then it comes down to what you want to do. So if you can go for the education front, and you can find other companies out there that, because you've just qualified, you need just the next level up of information.
Mm-hmm.
That next level up is going to be things like that teaches you about the body, about the actual processes of fat loss, hypertrophy, and strength gains. But there's multiple ways that you can go about it. The Shredded by Science Academy and the Lift the Bar, they are both brilliant online resources for new personal trainers.
Yeah. Well, then come to Integra, of course.
And absolutely. Yeah. So those are the guys that will teach you the sort of the foundation level of sort of personal training as a whole, whereas Integra specialises in the exercise experience.
Yes.
So the way that we work is looking at how can we build this exercise very specifically to that client's individual structure and where they're at on any given day.
So having achieved, these qualifications, and they can be done in the evenings and at weekends and, part-time, an individual then has to make the jump from the job they're in where they're earning money, but it isn't their true passion. They become qualified at a basic level, but then, of course, they need to then get that experience, don't they?
They do.
So how do they go about finding, a reputable gym where they can get this work experience, get that entry-level job? What would you suggest?
The first thing I always suggest is to Google it.
Yeah.
I'm like, first of all, Google it, either in your area or in your country, who is known as the best personal training gym there is.
Yeah.
And then from there, work out if you can reach out to those individuals, even if you can't, physically pay to go up and have a service with them, send them an email. Most people will just reply and give you some advice and guidance, because if you're hungry for knowledge, they'll want to support you. They've been there themselves. If you can pay for personal training yourself, I would 100% recommend it, because having the advantage of knowing what it's like to be a client and go through an experience will enable you to add so much value to a client.
And that's why it's so important to have a job already at the beginning to be able to afford that, because I would agree, if you have the client experience, then you absolutely know what you do and what you don't like.
Exactly.
And it stands you in good stead for when you're actually delivering that service, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Any other tips?
So on the job hunt, like I said, find out in terms of the UK or wherever you are in terms of your location, and mass produce. Literally, I used to get a list of every single company name, address, email address and telephone number, and work through the list, even if it's like 20 people or 20 companies or 15 companies, and get through that entire list, because someone will call you back.
Yeah, absolutely. Always that's the case, that you just got to be, and you've shown that in your history, haven't you, that once you decide that you want to do something, you're hungry for it and you go for it and you get it.
Absolutely. And, there's no limits other than the ones that you put on yourself.
Absolutely. So if someone does that, how long do you think that they would be a trainee, an entry level, before they can become a fully fledged personal trainer with their own client base? How long does it take?
Well, actually, to become a personal trainer itself, once you've got that level 3 certification and the insurance, you can hit the ground running if you want to. All you've got to do is, find a gym. Now, most gyms, the way that they work is that they'll be on a rental basis. So you'll say, hey, I'm a personal trainer, I'd like to work in your gym. They say you need to pay me X amount of rent per month, which means you are your own independent business, and it means you've got to start everything from scratch. So having some business knowledge, ways to know how to, manage your accounts, what you've got to do with tax, because that's very important. That will stand you in very good stead for getting a client base. Then it's just about approaching people in gyms and getting your face out there, really, and telling people why they should work with you.
And are there gyms where they can actually sort of circumnavigate the whole, having to get their own client? Can they go and work for a gym and be given clients to?
Yeah, well, companies like myself, Integra, we are all employed. So when a client comes in, we have an interview process, and then Michael and I will decide on which trainer gets this client. So it's a non-competitive environment. Those ones are really nice to work for. That's not really the typical standard in the industry. But there are ways where you can go to other gyms that employ you, and they'll tell you you're working with this client this week, and then you manage them from there.
And just thinking about it as well, there must be lots of opportunities abroad if people want to travel and work outside of the UK.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. There's loads of gyms abroad, and because
In sunny places, I
in
guess.
lots of sunny places.
Yeah.
And fitness is always wanted.
Yeah,
You're
of course.
never really going to be out of a job.
No.
You've just got to be good at your job.
Yes.
And in order to be good at your job, you've got to learn.
Yeah.
You've got to, equip yourself with as much knowledge and as many smart people as you can get around you as possible, and just find out what works for people.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think you've given us a fantastic overview of the industry and what it's like to actually do your job. Sounds really super exciting.
It is.
And if anybody wants to contact you and ask for more, where should they do that?
So you can have a look on our website at integra-training.net, or you can contact me personally. I'm happy to answer any questions on my email, which is roberta@integra-training.net. Robert with an A on the end.
Robert with an A on the end. Roberta, thank you so much. That's really useful. It's lovely to have you today.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.